As we prepare for Season 5 of the Amazing Build series and the release of Elatrion, we have to remember that not all hunters have access to the same gear, weapons, and especially duels. So, I'm Darcblade with a budget build for the Greatsword in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now, the main purpose of a budget build is to provide a build for newer hunters who do not have a large duel collection. Thus, this video makes use of a lot of alpha armor pieces and should allow hunters who have finished the main game to farm more duels for their collection. So for the Greatsword budget build, I've gone for a plain, straightforward, Elementalist DPS build. So for this you'll need the Glavenus Helm Alpha, the Rex Royal Male Alpha, Kaiser Van Braces Beta, Damascus Coil Beta, Rex Royal Greaves Beta, and the Handicraft Charm 4. Although this may be a Handicraft Charm 3 depending on how far you've got through the game. But for my weapon I'm using the immovable Dahama, which is the Shara Ishvalda Greatsword. And if you're able to get augmentations on it, I would recommend the health regen augmentation, then an infinity increase augmentation, and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. As for the specialist tools, these are down to personal preference. Now, as for your duels, like I said, these builds are aimed for players who do not have access to a large duel collection. So I'm using pretty basic duels here. The two rarest ones out of this bunch included Elementalist Duel for the non-elemental boost skill and Challenger Duels for a few points in the Agitator skill. But apart from that, I'd strongly recommend going for Vitality Duels for the health boost skill, an Attack Duel to increase our attack boost slightly, and Protection Duels for the Divine Blessing skill. But as always, remember that you can swap out duels here and there to what you have available to you. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 1541 with purple sharpness. You have 15% base affinity, which can be 65 when you're attacking monster weak points that have been tenderized through clutch claw attacks first. This can be even higher, up to 75% when agitator kicks in as well. You have no element, and as for your defense, you have a decent defense of 1064 that is strong against fire, neutral against dragon, but unfortunately weak to the other element, especially water. Now as for your skills, you've got a few of them here. First is Handicraft at level 5, this may be level 4 depending how far you've got through the Guiding Lands and how far you've leveled up the Handicraft Charm. But regardless, whether it's Handicraft level 4 or 5, this will increase the sharpness of your weapon, allowing you to have a decent chunk of purple sharpness. And as the Greatsword doesn't really go through sharpness that quickly, this amount of purple sharpness should last you a while. Anyway, next up you'll have Agitator at level 5 or level 3 depending on the duels you have available to you. Agitator is a skill that kicks in when a monster becomes enraged, increasing your raw attack as well as your affinity. A very useful skill in Iceborne as it is easy to make monsters go into the enraged state via Clutch Claw and Flint Shot. Next up is Attack Boost at level 4. Attack Boost is a straightforward skill that increases your raw attack of a build, and at level 4 or above it also gives you a bonus 5% extra affinity. Next up you have Health Boost at level 3. Health Boost is a skill that basically increases the maximum amount of health we can have. At level 3 it allows our health to get to a maximum of 200. You have Weakness Exploit level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity when we're attacking monster weak points. And should these weak points be tenderized through Clutch Claw attacks first, this increase to our affinity is even greater. With Weakness Exploit at level 3, it can be a potential maximum of 50% bonus affinity. So make sure you're always aiming for weak points. Next up is Focus level 3. Focus is a useful skill for the Greatsword as it allows us to charge up the charge maneuvers of the weapon more quickly. So ultimately it allows us to perform the true charge slash quicker than if we didn't have Focus. Next up is Divine Blessing at level 3, which is all thanks to our duels. That gives us a chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster, adding to the survivability of this build. Next up is Heat Guard, which is a byproduct of the armor we're wearing. This prevents any damage when we're in hot areas such as the lava zones, in the Elder's Recess or Guiding Lands. And finally you'll have Non-Elemental Boost level 1. This is a skill we've gained thanks to the Elementalist Duel we're using, which increases the raw attack of a weapon so long as that weapon doesn't have an element, or in this case the element is hidden. But there we have it, that is the budget build that I recommend for the Greatsword. But even the most amazing builds out there have pros and cons. With this budget build, the biggest pros for this build include its damage output. Whilst not the highest in the game, for a budget build it is definitely on the stronger side. On top of that, it has a few survival options thanks to having health boost and Divine Blessing, and on top of that it can be used against pretty much any monster in the game thanks to it being an elemental-less weapon, and thus you don't have to worry about elements or elements. But of course there are cons. The main biggest con for this build is its unfortunate low affinity, and it only really does come with a bit of purple sharpness, not a huge amount, although the greatsword shouldn't have to worry about this too much, but it is still a negative towards the build. But there we have it. That is the budget greatsword build I'd recommend for new players in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Of course, as you farm more and more, hunters will gain more gear and weaponry, as well as expand their jewel collection. So when this happens, I hope that other builds featured in the amazing build series will come in useful. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a budget build for the greatsword in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the little video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.